How you doing, Abby? How's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief introduction and tell everyone how I found you on my path recently. So Abby her bio is from an unloved, homeless foster child to a money manifesting queen. Abby has not only built a significant income for herself as a single mom, but also helped her clients make over $1 billion in 3 years, when most of them started at less than 5K a month dollars. She specializes in money mindset and manifestation, hanging out on the sweet spot between science and magic. So it's cool stuff. And I wanted to get you on because I saw you do your presentation on a business network that we're both involved with. It's Scott Oldford, who's a great dude. Everyone should follow him. And so I wanted to get you on to chat around what you were talking about there, around alignment and abundance. And I just loved what you were talking about. So yeah, that's why I brought Abby on, and you'll see how connected in she is with what's going on right now and what is needed for light workers, especially people doing work to bring people on a healing path, the coaches, the mentors, the people who we all kind of need at the moment, the leaders, to bring them forward into a higher state of abundance. So, Abby, where are you feeling called to start with this conversation? Let's bring it back to a definition of what for you is alignment, and then we'll go on to what is abundance later.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. And you said something that I think is really important to address at some point during our conversation, which is bringing leaders, light workers, the healers of the planet, the people who came here to do big work, and bringing them back into alignment with resources, money, because shoot, I'm just going to finish my thought and then I'm going to go back to your question. because because of the oppression of light workers, and it was very specific and intentional over the last 10,000 years. There's this narrative that's been built into the fabric of society in order to stop light workers from expanding, which is that it's not spiritual to have money. It's not spiritual to receive money for your gifts. You are a bad person if you do something very spiritual and healing and you receive money in return for that. And that was really cunning and brilliant, honestly, because the best way to stop light workers from doing their work and healing the planet is to cut them off at the knees, to make them worry about whether they're going to be homeless at the end of the month or not. Like, if people are worried about how they're going to be paying their bills, you better believe they're not showing up on social media and spreading their powerful message. They're not writing emails because they're not feeling inspired. They're just constantly feeling afraid that there's not enough money to eat, right? They're malnourished because they're living on top ramen and rice and beans. So it was a really cunning plan to, embed this narrative deep into the fabric of society, because now undoing that narrative is such a behemoth of a task, but so needed. Anyway, so I was like, when you were saying that, I was like, yes, light workers, come on, get your millions of dollars. Like, it's there for you. It's been set aside for you. Okay, so alignment. The way that I understand alignment is it's who you are, right? When we are born on this planet, according to my beliefs, this is not our first day at the rodeo, right? We have a soul. Our soul binds with a human body, and our soul has a bunch of experiences before we ever got here. So we have a soul identity, and we have a whole map laid out for us, like what we're going to do while we're on Earth. And so, but then what happens is that, throughout our lives, we get kind of dumped on with all this bunch of bullshit, and we lose our connection to that true soul self, and we start to see ourselves through other people's perceptions of who we are supposed to be. And so alignment is simply like chipping that away, clearing that bunch of junk. It's almost like, you know, like you're looking through the world with glasses, but your glasses are caked with mud, and other people have put that mud on your glasses. So getting back into alignment is like clearing off your glasses so that you can see yourself for who you truly are, and then matching up the like your whole life with who you are, what feels right, what feels you know, not necessarily good from a pleasurable sense, although yes, that's why we're in human bodies, is to experience all the kinds of pleasure, but like good from you know, an aligned point, like this resonates, this lands, this feels like me. There's a clarity, there's it's almost like the edge of like glass. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's not like a bunch of shit in the way. It's like it's very clear cut when we're in alignment. Hopefully that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I'll give my definition, which
Yeah.
it's great to hear your definition. I very much agree with it. And my mentor, she said it was essentially steering your ship through the ocean in the most graceful way, because ultimately, if you're not on your divine plan, there are gonna be other powers kind of leeching off you and taking you away from divine plan, and then you end up away from where you're supposed to land your ship. You're way off the coast somewhere, or you don't even find the coast, the promised land of where divine plan alignment and this heaven on earth actually comes in to being here. So you need to stick on your divine plan alignment, which is the semantics I use, the language I use, the divine plan alignment. And so you do that by cleansing your own being from your higher self, from your I am consciousness, from my point of view. And you cleanse your inner makeup, which I call the divine masculine, divine feminine, divine child. And you start doing inner work around there. You start healing yourself, and you start aligning with more integrity, because ultimately your divine plan is going to have the highest integrity on it. And therefore you have to embody the highest integrity to live out your version of heaven on earth. So
Absolutely.
that's where I've been coming from the last 7-8 years now.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think you're right on point. The only other thing that I would tack on to that is like even when you're on your divine plan, you will still have energies trying to lead you off. In fact,
Yeah,
they can get more insistent when you're closer to your destination, because you know it doesn't benefit them. It doesn't serve them at all in order to for us to step into our highest being.
Well, I'm certainly aware of that. That's how I met my mentor. I'd like to ask you about how you kind of dived into this world and was more aware of what was going on in reality. But I was aware of it through my mentor in 2015. This shamaness woman living in Colorado went to live with a elder woman, sort of, 60s age range,
Mm.
and so we were working together. I was being attacked multidimensionally all the time. My soul would be ripped out, chakra system shut off, the divine child smashed to pieces.
Oh.
It was essentially a wreck for a year for me, because I didn't have the tools to navigate that situation. She did,
Right.
but I didn't have. I was kind of running before I could walk. I couldn't clear myself. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was just
Sure.
in a blind room being smacked, and I couldn't do anything.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm aware of the forces, but the forces now, I think, and why we're having this conversation is the forces are much weaker. They're much more, for me anyway, as you get stronger, the forces trying to stop you get weaker, and you kind of laugh at them. They're not really anything that causes much problem. It just means you need more self-awareness, because and you need a more cleansed body, so your intuition rises. And I know you're a big advocate of speaking about the importance of intuition.
Yes.
And so that comes through the body. And I'm a big, I think the only difference we vary slightly is where I use dowsing more than you said you did the other day, where I'm using finger dowsing more, whereas you're using intuition and clearing energies. I think that's easier perhaps in a female body than it is a male, maybe. For the average person, I would say they probably need to learn dowsing.
Absolutely. Like honestly, I think whatever access point you have to the higher spiritual realms, like take full advantage of them. Like I would love to be able to dowse, to be able to use a pendulum, to be able to use tarot cards, to be able to use like tea leaves and runes and all kinds of stuff. Because honestly, like access points to spirituality and to consciousness like really fascinate me. But I was told this at a very wasn't like super early, but it was probably like in my mid 20s. I got, I got all the tarot cards I could see because none of them worked. And I was like, this is just gibberish. This is just nonsense. And I had like 15 pendulums because I was like, what's going on? And then finally, when I connected with angels, the angels told me, no, because your most clear connection is through your heart. And everything else is it's essentially removing me from the consciousness. Like it's sending consciousness like 2 clicks away as opposed to staying like super access to it, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I would say the heart is the ultimate dowsing tool because it knows yes and no immediately, whereas the reason why I use finger dowsing is my most common question I ask myself is actually, am I being interfered with by other beings that are not with my divine plan? I ask that in a shorter way a lot because one, I can sense it, and then I think one of the laws of this universe, from my understanding and seeing my mentor and others, is like you have to recognize that those beings are there before you can send them back to source. You have to, otherwise they're not going to go. So
that's right.
It sounds a bit mad to someone who's not heard this conversation before, but this is all in the biblical literature and other yogis like Sri Aurobindo and just it's basically documented across human history that these things exist that outside our light spectrum or other dimensions or just in some space that we can't visibly see. Some actually people can't see them. Maybe you can. My mentor certainly could. But
I can. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sense them once we start to awaken our bodies and our hearts, like you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to like circle back to your point of like the more you cleanse yourself and the higher into your divine self you get, the less power they have of you. And that's absolutely spot on. The way that that makes sense to me and it sounds like we're saying the exact same thing. We just have different, like, you're from, like this part of the UK and I'm from the south of the UK. So we have like slightly different perceptions, but essentially it comes down to knowing that you're a sovereign being. And when you know to the depths of your soul that you're a sovereign being, which means that nothing is allowed to attach to you, is allowed to affect you, is allowed to eat your energy unless you specifically or tacitly give it permission to, then you literally can clear anything at any time because no. According to universal divine law, I am a sovereign being, get the fuck out of here. And they must comply. That there's no other thing except for compliance. And then the more you know, the easier it is to just be like, nah. And then for me, just the better I get at protecting myself, it's almost as if like my shield just gets wider and wider and wider out. It's like it's really hard to get to me at this point. Doesn't mean they can't. The easiest way for them to get to me is through people that I know. So it doesn't mean that they can't get to me. It just means that it's difficult.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And it's certainly possible to do that. And also, while you're speaking, I was thinking, well, we're individuals in our own individual power going on a journey to heal ourselves to gain more of our sovereign power, which is based on integrity back. But we also live in a universe where there's other there's me, there's you, there's other people, there's, things, animals, the earth, and therefore we can ask for help. What for first if we're struggling in a situation, which may be an energetic one. You might need cleansing some part of your body or mind, spirit. There's someone out there that can help you. I have no doubt about that. And
Absolutely.
therefore, a part of this help for people going far on this journey is money, or at least the only thing for me that I have questions around, and probably other awake people would have a similar question to this, is what is your sense on the money systems at the moment from an energetic point of view? Are they dirty? Is there clean parts and then there's dirty parts? Is it like everything corrupt, or is there parts of the money systems that are clean now that we can play with? What's your sense on that?
Ooh,
The big
that
question.
is such a gorgeous question that I love a lot. So, okay, so when I talk about money, money is the physical manifestation of a grander energy source, which I refer to as resource flow. And then resource flow could be love energy, could be free vacations, it could be free food, it could resource flow is food that naturally grows in the planet. It's the minerals. It's anything that supports humanity's existence, right? So air is a resource, oxygen, light is a resource, health. So we've got the big, grand resource flow, and it's resource flow that is infinitely abundant because it is energetic. So resource flow is infinitely abundant, and then it kind of chunks down into money. Money is like one manifestation of resource flow. So the energy of money specifically is clean. It's clean. Money is a tool. It's simply love energy compressed. Um, it does have a consciousness. Like money is aware, but it doesn't have an agenda. Its consciousness simply supports humanity or whatever planet money is showing up on. So its consciousness is simply as a support. And actually, I've been talking with an alternate version of myself who's in a future that I would like to create. She's not in the future; she's in a parallel timeline. But she's been teaching me even more about money energy, which is that it's kind of obedient. It almost shows up as like a dog-like energy where it's completely loving. It is completely um, just devotional to humanity because that is its job. Like it was created to love and support humans. It just happens to be more intelligent than a dog. Like you can have a conversation with money. So the money itself is clean. It's the systems that we've created around money that are really ick. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily say that any of the systems that we have at this moment are not corrupt. Um, I would say that we're heading towards the collapse of all corrupt money systems. Um, that's been shown to me. But so, like, for example, I had a client who was like, okay, I don't trust banks. I feel the darkness behind bank energy. I'm not really sure what to do. And so, what we were able to do was banks are a depot for the energy to move them to move that money energy through you're not going to keep your money sitting in a corrupt system because there's really no telling what's going to happen to it, but they're there to facilitate the transference of money. And so they're kind of like quote unquote a necessary evil. Like it's okay and it's safe to move your money through without concern about it being infected, let's say. Like so we can participate in the systems without being hijacked by them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. There seems to be a massive problem with the sales tactics of many corporations to get money, and also taxes, obviously. Taxes, you know, I'm sure anyone on the light worker world could figure out a tax system that would work. I think
Absolutely.
I think this taxes should be on goods that are perhaps, not needed goods, and there's lower taxes, but it should be way less than 10%. I think something like 5-10%, and it goes to things that maybe you choose and that are balanced or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes. You
So I
choose.
think
Yeah, totally.
there is something where you give back to society, so
Yep.
where that money each month is going back into society. It's not being used back against you to, use the words inject you against your will seems appropriate. But I won't get into that conversation. But yeah, it
Sure.
seems to me that your what you just said makes sense. Is separating out the fact that it's just these corrupt sales systems or tax systems. Essentially, that's sales because they're trying to sell you something that isn't on your divine plan. It's not anything to do
Absolutely.
with your divine plan. It's been beholden to these other energies that we've just been talking about, and
Correct.
kind of satanic energies that don't have any place anymore on this planet, where we raise up into a higher vibration of consciousness. So if we separate that out in our minds, then we have less of an energetic block towards allowing more money flow in our lives.
Yes, exactly.
So what are your top tips for? I know you don't want to give everything away because you've got
Oh, no,
a.
I'll give everything away. I don't care. No, I would give the farm away, Steve, because it doesn't matter. Like, people who need support and guidance will reach out for support and guidance. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, truth, in my opinion, truth isn't proprietary. Like, it didn't come from me. I didn't make it up.
mm.
It's truth. I'm just a funnel. I'm a messenger, and so I'll share whatever you want to hear. And then if anybody's like, but how? That's when you come over and talk to me. I'll show you.
So for someone who's maybe you know they've got a great practice, it really helps people, but they're only earning sort of get by money, or they're living on the edge, the bread line, as we say in English. They're
Yeah.
living. Sometimes they have a good month, sometimes it's normal. They can't do everything that they perhaps wanted to do. How do they start to transition from that kind of normal way that maybe have been in for a few years
Yeah.
into this more mindset? I can go now. I
Yeah.
can
Yes.
start to upgrade things now, and use my money flow to help others more, as well
Yeah.
as helping my own family and things.
Yes. Oh, great. That's beautiful. I would start right off the bat. I loved what you said. Like, yes, money is here to help the world, and it's definitely here to help ourselves, right? And so one of the immediate trip ups that maybe someone who's a little bit more spiritual can have when they're moving into making a lot more money than they personally need is that they begin to think that the only reason they're allowed to make money is if they give it all away to the rest of the world, right? And so I like to start with this concept that Creator and God of Earth specifically meant us to have abundant experiences on planet Earth. What does that mean? Creator meant for us to have access and be able to visit as many different countries as we want to be able to immerse ourselves into as many different cultures as we desire, to be able to have the most luxurious experiences and the least luxurious experiences alike, all across the board. We are meant to feel safe. We are supposed to feel secure. And sometimes, people that I talk to, would say, okay, if I had 2 million in the bank that was just making me, $20,000, $30,000 a month, $40,000 a month on investment uh, returns, on royalties, on dividends, then that would feel safe, right? Some people are like, okay, I would feel so safe and secure to fully immerse myself into what I came here to do because I know money is there. It's always going to be there. It's going to keep coming back. Cool. Money, check. Now, mission, right? So, this is an experience that we were supposed to have, that we were set up to have, that got hijacked, right? You mentioned it a little bit, but that is a fascinating concept in itself 10,000 years ago when our abundant experience on earth got hijacked by energies not of this earth. So, and then that's when the narrative started to be planted that if you're spiritual, you're not allowed to have money, and all of these stories like of suffering, right? And positioning spiritual leaders of the past as it's only enlightened if you suffer completely on your journey, if you have to scrape by to get a piece of bread. And so the first thing that I like to do is just reposition the thinking. And obviously it's not going to integrate right off the bat, but just reposition the thinking that we were actually here to be abundant experientially and resourcefully. So that's just a whole new paradigm, right? Because someone who's lived on the edge, and I've been homeless, I've lived on $25 a week for food, for me and my daughter as a single mom. So I understand like just getting by and not having enough, and did it for years. And so the next shift that comes after that is essentially it's a question that you're posing to yourself, which is, what do I need to know to make it okay for me to have more than enough consistently? And there are usually going to be parts of us that will object to that, right? To have more than enough consistently, are you going to come up against a greed narrative? Are you going to come up against a selfish narrative? Are you going to come up against some of this old indoctrination that is, if I have more than enough, I'm not spiritual enough, or I've sold out, like what are the narratives that you're going to have to hit up against in order just to even believe that you're allowed to, and that's another one, allowed. Some people do not believe. They have this some people call it the poverty contract, right? They don't believe that they're allowed to make more than enough consistently. It just doesn't even compute. So then that's the first question. What do I need in order to believe? What do I need to know in order to believe that it's okay for me to make more than enough consistently? Because one of the ways that we can suffer is by putting ourselves through a dramatic cycle of money coming in and then there not being enough. Like that's one of the ways we can create our own suffering. So we're like, okay, teach, I'm doing the suffering bit. Is it okay if I have more money now? Suffering doesn't even have to be any part of the paradigm. So that's the first shift. The next shift is working on the relationship with money. Because for someone who takes it in and then there's not enough, and takes it in and then there's not enough, there's an ambivalent relationship with money, which means that it's almost like, okay, you can come in, but now get the fuck out. Okay, you can come in for just 10 seconds, but now you got to leave. And so it's almost like welcoming in a guest to your home, but they're not even allowed to take their coat off. They have to stand in the doorway and then they have to get the fuck out. So the next shift that needs to happen is, what needs to occur in order for money to be able to come into the house and stay? Like, what needs to happen in order to allow money to take off its coat, to take off its shoes, to like relax on the sofa, to set up a spare bedroom for money that it's allowed to stay, and then it's allowed to bring some friends, like, and we want like a nice, huge guest house vault. And initially, just even that idea, that concept can feel very uncomfortable. And then as you start to feel into that concept, you're going to have more limiting beliefs about what is okay, what is allowed, what is possible, what's not possible. And as limiting beliefs come up, you just clear them. My favorite way to clear a limiting belief is timeline therapy, because it is the most effective clearing technique I've ever encountered. It'll go back generationally, it'll go back all your past lives on different planets. You can even clear soul lives that are affected by limiting beliefs, which is really fascinating in itself. So then you would clear those limiting beliefs as you work on your relationship with money. Cool. Then you have to work on your relationship with yourself, because what makes it okay for you to have everything that you want and more? What makes it okay for you to have this life that you've always dreamed of? And so there's receiving challenges, there's deserve challenges, there's lots of trauma that comes up, there's a forgiveness of past mistakes, right? Because so many people will hold themselves hostage to mistakes that happened so long ago, even if they've learned like the lessons they were supposed to learn. They'll just keep branding themselves with coals, to make sure I never forget this lesson that I've learned. And it's like so deeply ingrained that just doesn't have to happen anymore. So those would be the immediate initial steps to just like remove some of the blocks to money, to allow some of those receiving centers to open so that money can start to flow in and it's welcome.
Yeah, it's a massive journey, and it's very individualized, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
if you're an entrepreneur as well, or just setting up your own coaching business and things, which I consider an entrepreneurial
absolutely.
mission, and so you can be anywhere on that stage. You could be early, you could be 5 years, 10 years, building up things, and you're going to need cash injections to get going, and you're gonna
Yeah,
need that money to stick around if you want everything to build as you want it in your vision. And ultimately, I think you need a vision, is what you're saying, a vision of this new union. I was going to say marriage, but union with money,
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's well said.
because you have to redefine this new relationship. You're essentially saying, and
Yeah,
and take time with it, and make sure it does stick around, because I think that's what shows up in your aura so strongly, and also someone like Scott Oldford. Um, you're holding this consistently, where this money's attracted to you, and you're holding it in a vibration where it it's in integrity, and you're doing things the right way. We need leaders like that. That's why it's so important for us all on this path of truth, to take this seriously. This stuff, I think.
Absolutely. And I think you made such a great point, Steve, which is that leaders need cash for their missions, for the initial costs of setting up a business, and then
Mm.
in order to get in front of the people who need you but don't know how to find you, right? Facebook ads cost money. Google ads cost money. Sponsoring newsletters costs money. Buying promotion spots, all of that stuff costs money, and it's money well spent, because you can take your truth and the message that needs to be shared by you and put it in front of people who are literally looking for it. They're like, "Where are you?" And then you show up in their world and they're like, oh, there you are. Oh my God, I found you. So that takes money. And that's why we have so much money set aside for us. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to make sure like we hammer on that point a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. The thing that I have trouble with is spent if I have money in the marketing sense. I don't find many alignments to, like, when I check with the dowsing, to spend in certain places. Like I wouldn't spend on Facebook, for example, because they banned me 3 times over the last 4 years for speaking truth about you know what. And actually, I've been banned from 6 social media companies in America. So why would I spend money on a company that doesn't want my voice there and is banning voices? I know it is a line for some people. You know,
Sure.
I know Scott and perhaps yourself, you spend money in these places. I'm not
Sure.
judging it, but from my
Oh,
point of
no.
view,
Yeah.
I can't do it. I just can't. So I have to look for alternative ways to do marketing
Yes.
and also just podcasting and finding partnerships and
Yes.
doing things in other ways. And Scott Arthur, he's good on giving you other ideas if you don't want to spend money on those main platforms. Because
Absolutely.
I do think that we have to, maybe you can give your opinion as well, think about the flow of where your money goes after you've had it, because that money needs to be in hands of integrity, in my
Yeah.
opinion. At least you need to contemplate that
Right.
and balance it out with what you're doing.
Right.
What do you think about where spending and do you spend on?
Sure. Yeah.
What do you
So
advise?
I've been on a really similar journey as you have, because I feel very strongly about what my money is used for, and 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 very unhappy with what a lot of money is being used for. And I actually had a really kind of intense, confronting conversation with my angels about it, because they were telling me, you've got to get on Facebook ads. And I was like, dude, I don't fucking want to fund the darkness. Like, I don't want to fund the other side of the war, you know? And they were telling me the same thing about TikTok. They were like, you have to get on TikTok. And I was like, I don't want to participate in this. And they told me, which I'll repeat right now, something that was just really straightforward, a logic I couldn't argue with, which was, there's 2 billion people on Facebook, and many of them need me. They don't know that they need me. It's almost like they wandered invisibly, blindfolded into the trenches. They have no idea that there's a war going on. They just are like, I need something. And many of them, it's not the whole 2 billion, but many of them, the thing that they need is me. The thing that they're looking for is me. And they were like, babe, you're just not going to get in front of them through the groups. You're just not. And I was like, fuck. And they were like, so you're just going to have to do it. And I was like, well, and not to say that I don't have free will, because I absolutely have free will, but I've found that if I listen to my angels on everything, they keep me aligned. So that was why I do it. Um, it's almost there's no justification that I can give to say where my money is going. I don't love it. I still don't love it. However, I'm willing to be okay to be in a space where I don't like a part of something, because the impact that it's having is far greater than the part of it that I don't like.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially, like, what they're saying is, like, because I was saying, like, I don't want to get in the front line. I don't want to be on the front line. Like, I like being at the back. I like being, oh, hey, you, and quietly pulling. I like being hidden, just quietly pulling people into the shadows and being like, here's the truth. Okay, you're free. I like that part of it. And
Nice.
they're like, that's not where your war is. Your war is on the front line. And I was like, fuck. And then that was the same with TikTok. It was like, there are people there that need you.
Mm.
So you don't have to. They were like, you free will, but there are people there that need you. So it's your choice. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So that was kind of my journey. It's still my ongoing
Well, yeah,
journey
I
with
think
it.
it's a beautiful story because I'm like, yeah, Christ is teaching us how to fish, and some people got fish in darker waters and spend money on boats to go into those waters, and I didn't. You did. That's completely fine, and both are fine. Uh,
Totally.
and yeah, we also I don't know, and we don't know the full picture of the situation with companies like Facebook. Maybe they might be able to be re-engineered into something else as, you know, the lower consciousness leaders drop out, and either, you know, I don't want to get into libel action, but there's certain treasonous activity, certainly in America, with a lot of these corporations. It looks like, from certain things I can see going on, certain in reality. So we don't know, and maybe in Facebook in 2-3 years or sooner might be taken over by someone else who's got good integrity. Maybe Scott, he wants to buy it. He's trying to be a billionaire. He would sort it into something beautiful, I imagine.
He would. Yes,
so
I agree.
who knows?
And light is infiltrated in Facebook, right? It's yes, Doc owns it. Absolutely. There's no way to deny that. But it's almost like light is constantly doing secret ops. And light was doing secret ops all throughout the pandemic and constantly hijacking various parts of the fear mongering and reworking it for our advantage, and then boom, integrating it back into society in a way that, you know, kind of darkness was kind of aware of, but not super aware of how impactful it was of what light was doing. So light is not blind. It's just Doc has been on Earth. Doc understands humanity a lot better than light does, because it was almost like it was it was almost like a professor, right? The light leaders were almost like professors. They were sitting on their council and just kind of adjudicating, and they lost touch with how humans think and how we are. And so that's why there's so many higher evolved light forms, because it's like, shit, Doc knows humanity better than light does. So light is like infiltrated the planet and is like, okay, we're here, let's go for it.
I think the Dark knew humanity on a very neurological, fear-based level. They didn't.
Yes.
They just didn't. If you know Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness in the book Power versus Force, it's one of the best books out there. I think he died about 10 years ago. He was an old guy though, 90s I think, but he's got one of the best books out there when it comes to describing consciousness on a map. PhD doctor obviously, and so he has the enlightenment, the love, the unconditional love in the top parts of the map, and then the middle is neutral, and then below, which are the forceful energies, things like guilt, shame, anger. So the Dark knew these lower forces because it wanted to pull everyone down into the his scale is 0 to 1,000. So enlightenment 1,000, 0, you know, just pure death. I think it's shame or guilt at the bottom. And so now we're rising. I think we're about, maybe we've even hit over it now, or it seems to be that we've hit over neutral, and people are pulling to this other side. And the more people, I mean, he proved with his science that the more people that hold enlightenment or beyond Christ consciousness, then you know, it pulls everyone else up. And I think there is quite a lot of people holding these Christ-like energies now, and a lot of integrity. So this is why everything's happening. I think most light workers, if they didn't think all that through already, they understand that. The people watching don't quite understand it, but maybe they will in a few years' time. We're all on a lesson here, an education.
That's right. That's right.
Maybe bring it back home with some how do we align for the abundance? Bringing the two sides of this conversation. We've talked about alignment, we've talked about abundance. How do we integrate those things from your point of view?
It's beautiful. I love that. Okay, so here are some of the steps. If you meditate on a pretty frequent basis, you can probably just manage this conversation yourself. But you want to start getting into conversation with abundance and also money. You know, so if you can think of abundance energy, resource energy as kind of like the mama, then money would essentially be like one of the offspring of abundance. And you want to get into some conversations with those energies because those energies just desire to support you. There's no resistance coming from their side. The only resistance is coming from our side. So we need to get into conversation about, okay, how do we, this is what I need from you, money. Like, I need you to da 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 da, list of requirements. Show up consistently, be there for me, right? And money says, yeah, of course, anything you need. You just have to let me, right? And then we go, okay, next part of the conversation. How do we let money? How do we trust money to support us? How can we trust the universe, right? Moving into surrender, moving into staying in alignment. My version of the divine plan is, I term it the alpha map. So it's the highest, most expansive, most money and most impact of a human life experience that we can have. So that's the alpha map, the biggest. It's not the best, like you pointed to earlier. There's lots of different ways that we can go, and we're going to learn something on every single iteration of our path. But the alpha path is the one that we came here to do. So my belief is that your intuition actually is how you read the alpha map, because every single step, every single breath, every single conversation, every single action, every single behavior or characteristic is already there. It's all laid out for you. That doesn't mean you don't have free will. It means you don't have to make any of this up. You don't have to sit and think to yourself, well, how am I going to make $1 million? It's destined for you. It's already on your map. You don't have to figure it out. All you have to do is, what is my next aligned step? What are the next 3 steps that I have to do in order to take me to my abundance, in order to take me into a fully aligned, a fully abundant life? And your intuition will give you every single step. And it's a living, breathing map, which means because our maps are integrated with everybody else on this planet, when someone makes a decision that brings them off their alpha map, obviously it affects our alpha map because maybe a decision depended on that person being in that position at that time, right? But because our teams, God, the High Council, because they can see everything, they're just constantly reworking existence for our highest benefit in order to keep us in alignment with our alpha map. So the real key is tapping into intuition and using it with every single decision. And I mean what to eat, where to spend your money on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis. I'm talking about the conversations to have, the connections to make. Like when you reached out to me, that was an instant intuitive yes, because I just felt it's on my path. I knew it, right? I didn't have to question it. I didn't have to be like, well, who are you? I didn't have to do any research because I just asked my intuition, is this a step for me? And the intuition is like, yes.
That's a nice. No one's ever said that about meeting me before. So, and they've sang. Maybe I think my fiance might have done something similar. I'm kidding. No, but that's how alignment feels though in our body. It's not just me. I'm making a joke about me here, but that's how it feels when you're going forward in your life, because you feel your instrument of your body is in tune with the universe, and your heart is being played in that way. You feel that high vibration. So yeah, it does. I think in the Gospel of Thomas, I really like that scripture, and it might be in the Bible somewhere. I'd have to double check. But they talk about what is heaven on earth, and Jesus says something like it's rest and it's play, and it's rest and it's play. And so
beautiful.
That, I think that's what you're alluding to there, is spending some time. I know you've got a journal that you sell and give away, I think, as one ebook, but you've got a physical journal that obviously journaling helps you rest because you're putting pen to paper and getting clarity of what you want, and then you're on play in the world. and then you rest again, and you're just assessing where you're going. It's having that more conscious relationship with money, with what you're creating.
Yes.
Because we can't forget that creation, or this new world, because I think as humans, and God has realized that money is good for humans when used in the right way. It's a awesome way to interact between businesses and creating harmony between the environment when we do it right. So yeah, it's these reframes. I think this conversation to hopefully help people reframe certain things. It's helped me reframe some even things for me. So yeah, is there anything you want to add to this conversation? We might have to get on another time, because I'm sure people want to hear more about your
Sure.
work, if you want at some
Oh,
time in the
I would be.
future. But
Yeah, I'd love to.
for this conversation, I know you've got an online event coming up, and also you've got your website and your book. And you want to say anything about those things?
Oh, sure. I mean, the predominant message that I always want to make sure to leave with people is that you are important. Most people feel 1 in 8 billion do- doesn't have much impact, can't move a lot of ripples, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And the way that I like to present it is, imagine that the entire world is like a really complex clock, right? And they're different sized pieces that do different jobs, but every part of the clock is important. If one part is missing, it doesn't matter if it's the teensiest little widget from a bolt in, one of the outer mechanisms. If even one part of the clock is missing, the entire thing functions less smoothly. So it doesn't mean that the whole clock is going to break if you don't do your part, but it does mean if you do your part, everything will go better for everyone. And so, if you can just find it in yourself to step out of smallness, to step out of hiding, and like really embody what it is and who you came here to be, the world is going to be a better place for that. So please, I invite you, if you're listening, to step into your power, because there is no time that the world needed you more than right now. And then, yeah, I've got my Become a Money Magnet journal. So it's just, I wanted to create, of course, I'm in business. I take money for my services, but I'm also a servant leader, which means that I want to serve over and above that. So I wanted to create a lead magnet that would bring people into my world, that would let them know exactly who I am and what I have to offer. But I wanted to do it in a way that was so complete that some people will never need anything beyond the journal. And that's why I even have a free version of it. And you can find me on Facebook, or I can send you the link, Steve. I don't know if you can pop it
Yeah,
somewhere.
I can put it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really starts to work and massage your money mindset. And it's got lots of the pieces that we talked about today. It's got, you have to set your daily intention to remember that you are a conscious creator of your life on a day-to-day basis. You source out your limiting beliefs, the biggest things that are stopping you from moving forward. And then there's a tutorial on how to create affirmations that will specifically start digging away at the limiting beliefs. Then I have, a point where I encourage people to check in and figure out, what are those 3 intuitive things that need to be done today, right? And I definitely encourage people using intuition because it keeps them on the alpha map. But if you're not super tapped into intuition, you just kind of feel into it. What are the 3 things that need to be done today? And then gratitude, which is vital, right? Because if we're in entitlement, some people call it complaining energy when they're referring to manifestation. It's really kind of an entitlement energy. It's, I've already done a lot. My life has been so hard already, which means that you have to come rescue me, universe. I'm tired. I don't want to do anything more. And when we operate from entitlement energy, the universe is like, no, nope. So there's a piece where you can just really focus on gratitude, and then remembering to thank money, to be grateful for money specifically. And it's got sacred geometry built in there to activate your cells on a deeper level. So I love my journal. I'm super proud of it. And then, yeah, my website, abbylevine.com. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And that'll take you to all my other resources as well.
Yeah, I know you're doing a lot of great work. I checked out your site today, and you
Thank
also got a
you.
home for orphans. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. So what I'm doing is I have a nonprofit, and we are building transitional homes for foster youths who are transitioning out into the world. So it's like a 2-year transitional home just to make sure that they have everything that they need, heal any limiting beliefs about worthlessness or lack of deserving before they get out into the world, because 65% of foster kids are homeless within 18 months. And then 25% of emancipating foster kids are in jail within 5 years. And so it's literally just a lack of support. They don't have anyone teaching them how to integrate into the world.
Yes, it sounds like they need a lot of healing modalities to in
Yeah.
that home, and we need more of those types of homes for people.
Yeah.
I might have to introduce you to my friend Dr. Doug Lair, who does cellular resonance
Ooh,
therapy on the bodies, about 65 years old, and he's worked on this for 35 years. And
cool.
he's training practitioners around the world at the moment, and we need more of his work. But there's so many modalities that, yeah, you can help people who want to heal, or young people who are in a bad spot and just need some extra help. So,
Yeah.
well, I thank you for your time. Thank you for doing all the work that you do in the world, and
Oh.
grateful for yeah, future conversations that we might have. My future self is grateful for them. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I really, really appreciate you holding space for this conversation. And I reflect back, thank you for bringing truth, just like shining a light on truth so that more people can realize that truth is there and exists.
mm, yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and share it with your friends if you have done so. So thanks so much for listening, everyone.